go there.
Do you think that you can be a Star Wars fan if you were born in 1990 and missed the release of episodes 4, 5, and 6? Some people think you can't be a true Star Wars fan if you weren't born in 70 or before 76, 75.
Or if you didn't spend your life as a small child absorbing all of it.
Right. So the concept of gatekeeping. Ghostbusters, the gatekeeper and the keymaster. Yeah.
Zool.
Yes.
Oh, Sigourney Weaver.
Weaver. Yeah, she's like attached. She's connected to all sorts of things.
I know. It's like that Kevin Bacon thing.
That 6 Degrees of Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah, I think we could do that with pretty much anything we talk about.
We probably could.
I'm gonna start making notes.
Yeah, of how she's connected to things. So there have been... Okay, so I myself was born in 76. So I did not actually attend any grand opening of Star Wars Episode 4 when it came out. But I am a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was born in 81, and because I was an actual toddler, I didn't see any Star Wars anything until probably I was 5 or 6. So at that point, I think the original trilogy was all out, because the last one was Jedi was 83 or 84.
Yeah.
So I would have been too young to remember anything if I'd even watched it then. So, right. But I still grew up with it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, my parents, my family didn't give me Star Wars toys because they were considered boys' toys.
Oh yeah, that was definitely a thing for me. My brother would get them.
Yeah, so I got Barbie underoos.
Yeah.
Which pissed me off. And then my friend Monica, she got the C-3PO underoos, which I was totally jealous of.
That's not even fair.
No, it's not.
Gender norms in the 80s were a nightmare. And the late 70s, yeah.
But like my friend Jason Farrell, he had all of the Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
And he had the Ewok tree, and the village and all that. Like the carrying cases and things like that.
I loved all that stuff. I will have to bring my lunchbox for my Empire Strikes Back lunchbox from 1980.
Is it rusty?
It is rusty, yeah.
Do you have a thermos?
I don't have the thermos, which it would be disgusting if I did have the thermos. Like, any thermos from the 80s shouldn't exist anymore. It's probably, like, flammable and made of lead at this point anyway.
Yeah, I can't find a good lunchbox that has a thermos in it anyhow. Like, one of the cool ones.
No.
But, so, there's, I mean, especially all the trolls online. But I think, this even non-trolls, I think even nerds that are... Let me lob off nerds, because there's a difference between a fan and a nerd. Because I think that there are fans out there, because fan is short for fanatic.
I always forget that somehow.
Let's just, put that out there. So there are fans out there who... And it's funny, like, the spectrum of fans, because there are the hardcore fans that... have all that they're into cosplay, they go to all the conventions, they've got all the stuff, they've learned Klingon. I'm not judging, I'm just saying, like, there's like all of these things.
I think I know at least a couple of people that know some Klingon.
Sure.
I'm not one of those people.
I know a couple of words, but I couldn't speak it. However, it's a full-on language.
Yeah.
And somebody was telling me that Ohio State actually, or some school that they went to, they actually did teach Klingon. When I was at OSU, they were teaching Elvish, Lord of the Rings. Elvish.
I have heard of that. Yeah.
I missed that. But so I get it. Like, I've gone through my phases of, these new kids coming out, being born after 1990 and saying they're Star Wars fans and they're, liking episode 1.
Right.
Whatever. But that doesn't make them any less of a fan just because I've been around longer.
Yeah.
And, you know, and obviously I'm not like the superest nerd that ever nerded about Star Wars. There's
Right.
plenty. But it's unfortunate when, and also, I mean, it can turn downright abusive online.
I know. Yeah, it can. It's sad.
But we've not only do we see this in Star Wars, but then there are the Trekkies, or I think there are some people that call themselves Trekkers, and I think that there's a difference between a Trekkie and a Trekker.
I do not know what that
And
difference is.
I've always been sort of jealous of the Trekkies because there isn't a word like that for Star Wars fans. We're not Warsies or Wars. We don't have a word.
That's a good point. Yeah,
You know?
you just say the whole word.
We're like
say,
yogis. Like, I'm a yogi. I'm a Trekkie. I'm a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
It's very cumbersome. But anyway, so there are then also people who feel like you can't be a Star Trek fan, a true Star Trek fan, if you either haven't watched the originals or maybe your favorite Star Trek. I mean, God forbid, have you ever watched Enterprise? That's the one with Scott Bakula.
Yeah.
You know, there are a whole group of people that feel like you can't be a proper fan if you actually like Enterprise because it, you know, wasn't that amazing, but I liked it. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
Or people knock on you for liking the new movies.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams is like king of the nerds at this point. And
Yes.
he's made a lot of money, and I think he's done a good job with, you know, a lot of different things. So I don't quite get that because it's almost like a reimagining, and I think sometimes that's where gatekeeping gets tricky. Is people don't want you to change. They don't want change of any kind.
Yeah.
So if something new comes along, it's bad. It's automatically bad. Like, you've got people that are already saying things and making a big deal about the rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
People are already deciding that they hate it and that it's garbage, and they're creating like entire like subreddits for, you know, why it's a terrible movie.
And they'll go see it.
They'll go see it. They're going to pay money to go see it.
And they'll probably watch it a couple times.
Yeah,
so that
they
can prove
will.
all their points.
And then make a bunch of memes about how terrible it is. But, like, didn't you just give a bunch of money to Disney to, like, go see that?
That's
like,
how you really protest.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't quite get that level of gatekeeping, but it's out there.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I am not a huge fan of Last Jedi.
Yeah, I feel like we talk about this on every episode.
I try not to judge. I try not to determine whether or not somebody can be a friend if they liked Last Jedi versus not. There are plenty of good people out there. I feel like it's up there with, like, politics, you know?
Right.
There are good people on both sides that like Last Jedi and don't like Last Jedi. But here's the thing, like, I can find a lot of positives. There are a lot of things about the movie that I can appreciate.
I know, yeah.
I love the explosion in space when Hoda, you know, goes through on not warp drive. That's Star Trek. Oh God, light speed. You know, she engages. I'm using all the Star Trek terms all of a sudden. Engage.
The beginning's really good. It's very exciting.
Yeah, like, and I liked the battle between Luke and Kylo on Crate. I loved that, and I did see, watching it the very first time, I noticed when Luke moved his foot that it didn't show any red. I'm like, oh, dude.
I think
he's not there.
Yeah, I was kind of like looking for it. So I don't know if that meant that it was predictable or if we were just paying attention really
We're like
hard.
that big of fans that we recognized it.
I don't know which one it is.
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there are some people who absolutely, like, that's their favorite Star Wars movie. They're allowed.
Anybody that has said that.
There's actually the guys on Tested. So Adam Savage and Norm and a couple other folks have this podcast. And there are a couple of guys on there. One guy in particular, I can't think of his name, who that's his favorite Star Wars movie. And there are plenty of people out there. And he is a huge Star Wars fan. And you can let them live. They are allowed to live.
Right. It really doesn't affect your
They're
life
allowed to
in
exist.
any way if somebody enjoys that movie or if they really liked baby Anakin and
Yeah. And also, like, I think it's just also sort of a metaphor for all of life. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
like, if we didn't have differences, okay, so as much as I enjoy talking about all the nerd stuff and all of that, like, it's life would be really boring if we all just sat around and talked about how much we loved the exact same things.
Yeah, I think the internet makes that really difficult because people go to different groups or they find certain things on the internet so that they can feel like part of a community, and then they create, like, they'll call it like an echo chamber kind of a thing.
It's true.
Where it's like a group of people just agreeing with each other. So it's tough because I think that's maybe like part of our programming is we want to find people that are like us, but that's also where the other side comes in of people that if they don't agree with that, that's when you get trolls, that's when you get gatekeeping.
But that's what I think is funny, though. It's like, even in let's stay with Star Wars for a second, even in the realm of people who are like diehard Star Wars fans, that's the community. Why can't we still be
I agree.
all together in the same community and still disagree? Because that's the way life really is.
Yeah, have a conversation about it before resorting to insults about someone's intelligence.
Right, because, I mean, you may be able to learn something like, okay, how about, like, why don't you tell me why you love Last Jedi?
Yes, that is my preference. If I disagree with somebody on something like that, I really like to hear why they feel that way, because then a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, if they describe their reasoning, it brings something up to me that I hadn't thought of or considered before, and they might not change my mind completely, but I might see something that I hadn't seen before, and I don't know. I just like getting that perspective, and sometimes it does change my mind a little bit.
Sure, but I think there's nothing wrong with saying, like, oh, I get it for you, you know. And it's, I mean, maybe it's the same thing as saying, like, oh, that dress looks nice on you. I would never wear it, but it looks
Your
nice on you.
haircut's so cute. You're so brave.
That's terrible.
Have you ever had that? I could never pull that off.
Yes,
like
in that situation.
Yeah, that's.
The dress looks nice on you. But that's the thing, though, is that they can have their opinion, and you can see, like, okay, this person is coming from their life. Like, they've lived all of these years and all of these experiences have made them into a person that loves Last Jedi. I don't mean to keep making it sound like that, but that's the thing, is that maybe now you can see, like, oh, they had this experience once when they were a kid, and that
I'm trying really hard to be serious.
I don't know why, but
I don't know. I agree with what you're saying. Absolutely agree with what you're saying, and I don't know why I'm still laughing.
I still feel like you could have gotten rid of Canto Bite. Like, I feel like that whole section of Canto Bite really could have gone away. There are some people that love it and think it should stay. I feel like the relationship with Rose and Finn was
Benicio del Toro did not need to be in that movie.
No, he didn't at all.
I'll leave it at that.
He added nothing.
And
I like Benicio del Toro. I think he's cute.
Too.
I think he's a good actor.
He's an excellent
I like the way
actor.
he talks.
Except in that. I don't like how he talks in that. It was, like, very forced.
Anyway, so
we accept you. But
yeah, I mean,
it's hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's a practice in itself.
And so what I've experienced, like, I remember, I think if you can take something and switch the perspective a little bit. So here's a personal example. So Aaron's son his name's Raven, and he's about, I don't know, God, what was he born, 99? Oh, God.
There were people born in 1999.
And he's in college, which makes me, like, feel really effing old. Oh,
God, yeah.
So, I remember taking him to Star Wars when it was the reboot of Star Wars, and he's, like, 3 feet tall, dressed in his Vader outfit.
Aww.
Oh my God, I was dying. Like, we're walking into Lennox, and he's, like, walking with his mask on and everything, and his cape that's, like, down to his toes. And we sit down in the theater, and it goes dark. he still has his mask on, okay? Because, like, you've got to be Darth Vader for the whole movie.
Yeah.
But then there's a dilemma of, like, well, how do I see the movie if I'm being Darth Vader?
Oh.
And so he's not yet old enough to read. And so Aaron's reading the scroll for him, you know? And so he's like, in a galaxy far, far away, like all this shit. It's hysterical. And then finally he gets through it. Because Raven has now been set up to think that you can talk through the movie because Aaron was just reading him the crawl.
We're all reading together.
Yeah. Oh no, actually this wasn't the reboot. I think it was episode 1.
If he was born in 99, that was when episode 1 came out.
Yes, and so he was like, well, where's Darth Vader? And Aaron's like, he's Anakin Skywalker, the little boy that you see up there.
Yeah.
And he's like, no.
He's like, what
where's
the hell?
Darth Vader? And
you guys.
So we had to explain, or Aaron tried to explain the best that he could about, like, that little boy is going to turn into Darth Vader. And Raven's mind was blown.
That would have messed me up if I was a kid. I don't think I could have handled that kind of thinking.
And then finally he took his mask off because he couldn't see the damn movie. But it was adorable. But that's the thing, is like, so I don't know how much of a Star Wars fan Raven actually is. Like, I don't know if he's gotten that gene from his dad, but...
Or maybe that's how he rebels, is by not liking Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he did that with Harry Potter. He refused to like Harry Potter because everybody else liked it.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not judging Raven if you're watching this. But if you see this from a different lens, like, he's allowed to be a Star Wars fan because maybe he has become that. Let's just say that he has. And he's only 20-something. Mm-hmm. I'm 43. I've got twice as many years on him to be a Star Wars fan and to know more stuff. But I get to now see Star Wars from his point of view, from his lens. I get to learn more things, and arguably, like, with a brand new person to Star Wars, I get to sit down and tell them, like, okay, this is how this person is connected.
Yeah.
Luke and Leia are brother and sister.
You're like, gather round.
Gather around, children. Let me tell you about Star Wars. So you can still appreciate the fact that somebody can be younger and newer. And you know what? Sometimes these new people, they actually see stuff that we didn't catch because we're so stuck in our ways.
Yep.
You know, and I've seen the movie 1,000,000 times. And
Right.
Yeah, but how many times have you actually stopped watching this part of the screen and you looked over here?
Right, or you're waiting or anticipating a certain thing.
Because you know all the
tune
words.
Everything else out. Yeah.
Yeah, and so now you get to see it, and somebody else is like, well, hey, did you see that, you know, droid in the background? That's the same one from the other thing. You're like, oh, I didn't. Oh, whoops. So you can see it with fresh eyes with new people as well.
Yes.
New people are allowed to. It's just like, you know, people who are just now Rolling Stones fans. They're allowed to be Rolling Stones fans, even though the Stones are like 1,000 years old and you've been there since the beginning.
I was a terrible, terrible gatekeeper of all things music when I was in high school. I had to be the first to own whatever the cool album was. Like, if I liked a band, I had to know everything about them. I was insufferable. And then if somebody would get into a certain thing and it had been out for a while, I'm like, oh, they're not a real fan. So I definitely went through that, and like, I definitely lived it. And some of the things that I was really into in high school, my youngest sister is getting into. So instead of taking the approach of like, oh, she can't be a real fan, she's new, I've taken that gather round, children kind of thing. And I've like embraced that as like, oh, you think you like this band? Let me tell you everything about them. But I mean, if she asks, it makes me feel like, I don't know. It makes me feel really good. So that's, I think, maybe where the, like, considering the other perspective is helpful. Because, God, I was kind of a jerk.
But how old does that make you feel to, like, talk about, like, Nirvana?
Specifically Nirvana? Friggin' old. Because I think it was like in February or March, I was reading an article about how it would have been Kurt Cobain's 52nd birthday, which just sounds really wrong for some reason, because for us he'll always be 27. I mean, that's just like the age that he is. And now that I'm in my 30s, looking back at him as 27, I'm like, oh my God, that's like really young. But in my head, he
was older than I was.
So much older.
Yeah, I was in high school when he died.
Yeah, so it's just a very strange experience to discuss it in that way with all this knowledge. It makes me feel a lot older than I actually am. So that's where it gets complicated, where I'm like, oh, God, this feels really heavy and intense, my mortality.
Yeah, and the fact that, like, I'm much older than Kurt Cobain ever was.
Yeah, I've thought of that before too. Like, oh my God, he would have been 52, or like you'll see Courtney Love now, and I think
she's not aging well.
Sorry, Courtney. I was just like, oh my God, like how?
But yeah, she kept on aging and he didn't.
Yeah, it just makes you, stuff like that makes me more aware of my mortality than I want to be in like a moment to moment basis, I think.
It's like Yoko Ono and John Lennon.
Yeah.
I mean,
we see her get older, but not him.
I remember when John Lennon died.
Yeah.
I remember my mom, like her, I don't know if he was an ex-husband yet or not, but a man that at some point became her ex-husband called from New York and said, oh my God, Michelle, did you hear? And she's like, what? John Lennon was killed. She was sobbing.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
for that age group.
Heavy.
Yeah, for that age group to have grown up with the Beatles.
Yeah.
And then to hear about that.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. But and the Beatles, that's another one, like, a group that's been around forever. And once they've been around for a long time, their music is still popular.
Right.
There are new people finding the Beatles. You can be a Beatles fan, even though the Beatles are no longer playing.
Yeah.
And half of them are gone.
Yeah.
But anyway, and so, do we want to do a quick nod to our sponsor before jumping into how this is related to yoga?
Yeah, that would be a good segue.
Let's do a segue.
CS Coffee. I forget the website.
csinstant.coffee.
Thank you for remembering that. So they are our sponsors. They can be checked out there. They can be checked out on Instagram as well. If you enter the code TREE, TREE, you can get 20% off of your first purchase. And any purchase you make, they will plant a tree. So it is sustainable, organic. It is instant coffee, so it comes in little biodegradable packets. Really good for camping, really good for hiking, stuff like that.
Check them out. Woo. So we've been talking about gatekeeping and how people who have been around longer or have the official, gear from, I don't know. I think that there's like official Star Trek, like uniforms and things like that, and all the official stuff, and have read all the canon books and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we talked about that. Very similar to what you might experience in the yoga world as well. Got to be honest. That's the dark side of yoga. There are a lot of dark sides of yoga,
it's rough
actually.
Out there. And especially now, because in the last decade, yoga has changed in the United States, at least, because that's our context, a lot. Like, so much that I could probably go on for several episodes about just the ways that yoga has changed, even in just here in Columbus, Ohio, where we're at. But as it's changed, it's kind of created some subgroups. And there are groups of people that really want yoga to be an ancient tradition, and they want to follow the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, or they want to follow these texts that they believe kind of hold all the answers. And anybody that's been through yoga teacher training has read these books because, well, most people have. So depending on the type of yoga teacher training you go through, Yoga Alliance has certain requirements for reading, which I'm not 100% sure why they've chosen some of these things, but they have. So some folks believe that if you are a practitioner of yoga, you must follow all of these rules. Well, okay, but a lot of what we're doing in yoga is not from these books at this point in time. So it gets really sticky, and you get a lot of people that are kind of gatekeeping yoga and saying that you must follow the sutras of Patanjali. It's like, okay, that's fine, but does that actually work now in 2019 for somebody living in a house with air conditioning and heating and running water and indoor
in the
plumbing.
United States.
Yeah.
And, you know, women are not subservient
And as
to
a
men,
woman,
and,
yeah.
you know, all these things. And different culture, different time.
Different time, especially.
I mean, we don't eat the linen to clean out our guts.
I can't use a neti pot. Every time I use a neti pot, I end up like snorting salt water into my throat, and then it gets in my ears. I've tried. I've been trying for
I like it. But
I've been trying for at least 15 years. Like every few years, I'm like, I'm gonna give it another go.
Again.
I'm a real yogi. Glug 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 into my ears.
I don't see. My problem is that it just. I love a neti pot. I love using a neti pot. For those of you that don't know, it's like this. They look different, but like mine is like this little white ceramic little pour thing.
It looks like a genie's lamp.
It does, yeah. And you mix it with non-iodized salt or specific neti pot salt if you want to spend the money on it. Mix it up in warm water, and you put it up against one nostril, tilt, and it goes through your sinuses and cleans out that side. And then you clean out your nose. Then do it through the other side, and it's the similar feeling to like when you go to the beach and you get hit by a wave and like the salt water just clears out your sinuses.
I hate that.
And you get all the fish guts in your nose and all that stuff.
Fish guts optional.
So it's a fantastic. If you can handle it, number one, you never use it if you actually are congested because then it just makes it worse. But it helps with allergies. I've had numerous doctors actually encourage me to use a neti pot. However, it's not for everybody. You know, so forth. However, so the point is that there are a bunch of these things that the yogis used to do thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, probably. And I've seen pictures. I've never been to India. Oh, that's another thing.
Oh, you've got to do your teacher training in India.
If you've never been to India, you can't possibly be a yogi or a yoga teacher, all that stuff. I think that's BS because honestly, like there are a lot of things about the traditional Indian way of doing it that I don't subscribe to.
Right, they don't apply. For instance, if we were to follow these older teachings, we would not be yoga teachers because men are yoga teachers. And I was talking about that a little bit. So Pattabhi Jois, responsible for the Ashtanga lineage, had I cannot remember if it's his daughter or granddaughter now. I believe it was his daughter was wanting to teach, and they were saying, no, you can't teach, you're a woman. And so she had to fight like hell to allow others to allow her to teach something that she had grown up with. I mean, this was something that was part of her everyday life, but just because of the lineage. So that's even within, a lot of folks that might be watching, that's within our lifetime that things like that have happened. Most of the yoga that is being done in most of the studios that you're in now, it's not in these books.
No, because the movements, the poses that we practice, that was brought to India when they were occupied by the British.
Right.
And, all these British tumblers and gymnasts and whatnot came over.
Very flexible, pre-flexible folks, young boys mostly. So young boys that were already into gymnastics, things like that. Most of the poses we're doing were probably thought up around the 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you go to a flow class, the lineage is probably going to be in Ashtanga, but people are really, really creative now with sequencing and poses and different shapes that are most certainly not in any of these books.
Well, and you brought up Pattabhi Jois. I mean, he only just died within the past decade. He died like in the 90s, I think.
Yeah,
I guess that's more than a decade.
Isn't that weird? I do that too. I'm like, the 90s were like only like 10 years ago.
Nope.
Womp womp. I'm old.
Damn. but that's the point, though. So, certainly within our lifetime. But and so not only do we have that when it comes to these traditional texts and things like that, but then you've got the people who think like, you can't be practicing yoga if you're not doing pretzel poses or
what? Yeah, kind of like what's the point?
Right. Or the people who think that yoga is only just the movement. Mm-hmm. I mean, you
The
truly
people
have.
that leave before Shavasana starts. As two yoga teachers sitting here gazing into your eyes through your phone, well, probably your phone if we're real.
Yeah.
If you're going to go to yoga, stay for Shavasana.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't stay for Shavasana, maybe you skip that day. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to skip a day because not only are you missing out on the part where you get to settle back into your body and breathe and maybe restore your heart rate to more of a resting heart rate, but you're derailing everyone else's moment. And it comes off as, I think, really rude. And
I agree.
And sometimes people will tell you ahead of time, which is fine, like, oh, I gotta skip out early. But I kind of still feel like if it's in a classroom, especially some classrooms that are smaller, like here, if you're one person out of 4 people,
that makes
and
a
you're
difference.
rolling up your mat, maybe practice at home. I know it's hard. Like, I have dogs and I have a cat that don't really let me practice at home, but I think it's maybe like giving yourself permission to.
And I balance, I go back and forth between like, okay, you can't control life. You can't, like, I can't get angry because the fire truck goes by and all of that. Like, you're going to have disruptions in life. That's just life. So I vacillate between like, okay, we all need to like deal with the situation.
I do too. And sometimes, because I've taught in environments where maybe it's a school, maybe it is a gym, maybe it's something that's just a non-traditional environment where other things are going to be happening, and it's Shavasana, and people are coming and going, or things are happening. And I'll usually reframe it for students as, this is a chance to work on your resilience, to work on your focus. It just allows you to redirect and kind of like allowing it to be part of your experience, because this is how life is. But I go back and forth between that too. It's almost like, am I gatekeeping if I want people to stick around for Shavasana? I don't know.
I also feel like, I mean, it's also, I mean, I wouldn't have walked out on my professor with 5 or 10 minutes left in class.
Mm-hmm.
You know, class is still happening. This isn't like,
that's my thought too.
You know, this is
part of it. This is just as important.
I mean, I sit through the credits at the end of the movie, whether it's a Marvel movie or
I was
not.
just going to say, are we talking Marvel? I think Marvel has kind of set us up to expect that something else is going to happen, though. Like, they've trained us.
Ferris Bueller actually started it.
Oh, that's right, because he comes out, he's like, why are you still here?
Yeah. He's in his little towel after
that.
So ever since that, I have actually stayed. Plus, also, I really like, so at the end in the credits, regardless of which way they're scrolling, I like to find like the long names and try to pronounce them before they get to the top, before they're gone. But so it's funny to find like the most ethnic name possible, and then like John Smith.
Yeah.
So like we're pointing out like all the big names, and then we're like, oh look, Eric Williams, or whatever. You know, it's just funny. But also like I really like to see the people who made the movie.
I know. I always get interested in the little
all those
details
digital artists.
I know,
Pages
especially now.
Pages. Yeah.
There's a lot more to see now. Yeah, and I think a lot more people sneak things in. But still, yeah, I think it's just part of the experience, and it's like taking, I don't know, I feel like you're missing out on such a huge piece of yoga to not stick around for the whole thing. It's, I don't know.
But
I have a lot of feelings.
I agree. But, you know, what, as a teacher, but also as a yoga student, I mean, you know, when it comes to the gatekeeping thing, like I'm seeing this from the teacher perspective, but also just as a practitioner of yoga. I actually enjoy people who are just now coming into yoga. Beginners are always my favorites because they're just like a clean slate.
Yeah.
And they can know what I tell them. And I don't have to undo any bad habits. However, but at the same time though, like I enjoy people who have been, let's say, practicing yoga for a while in their own ways, like they refuse to do anything else other than this. I even enjoy talking to them about, you know, those are the types of people that I'm like, oh, you like Last Jedi. Okay, fine. Tell me why you like only hot vinyasa flow.
Right.
Let's talk about this. and I can learn something from them.
Yeah, I do tend to ask people a lot of times with certain things like that. It's like there's something else that they're looking for from yoga. So that's where the gatekeeping gets really tricky, is because everybody comes to yoga for a different reason. There are tons of similar reasons. Like, as humans, we're really not that different. We all do a lot of the same stuff, and we all have a lot of the same problems. How we arrive there, I think that's unique, but like, we're all, you could lump most people into like a few categories, I really think. But that's where it does get tricky, is not gatekeeping when somebody's coming to yoga for something different. So if somebody likes the really hot power flow, whatever, some people feel like if they're not sweating, they're not working. Like, okay, that's fine.
It's not really their fault.
It's not their fault.
Our culture's done that.
It is, but for some people, that's something that makes them feel helpful. When
I was there, I did that.
I did that too. I used to try to force myself to go to hot yoga classes at that time to hopefully lose weight, because I didn't need to lose weight. I had a lot of other things going on, but I think that's why a lot of people end up going, is they feel like they're exerting more effort, because they are.
Yeah.
But that's where I have to really think critically about the fact that we all end up in yoga for different reasons. Yeah. So I started doing yoga 20 years ago, because I was hoping that it would like make my anxiety go away. Go away completely. So that was my reason for doing that. Whereas somebody else might have thought, I have anxiety, I'm going to go find somebody to prescribe me medication. And somebody else might have said, I'm going to go to yoga because, like we were talking about Ashtanga, like I want to look jacked. Because that was what drew me to Ashtanga, was a lot of times people that practice Ashtanga, if they practice it a lot, and usually they're doing other things too physically, like they look muscular. So I was like, well, I want to go to Ashtanga. I want to look like that. So
you know what's funny?
Remembering that we all end up in wherever we land for different reasons, but we're all so similar.
I remember, related to the Ashtanga thing and looking jacked, and I think we've talked about this before, there are also people who believe that yoga is the only thing that you should do for exercise for your body, or whatever. And I remember, and I know I've brought this up, but I remember an article that I read, I believe it was in Yoga Journal at the time, this is a couple decades ago, about the argument of, should you have to do anything else?
Yeah.
My answer is yes, because it's not cardio.
If you do a few, even in like a flow class or an Ashtanga class, yeah, you'll do your vinyasas, your sun salutations, but in general, if you're holding the poses for like 5 breaths or more between them, that's not, cardio needs to be steady state. Yeah. Your heart rate needs to be elevated to whatever your target heart rate is for more than
and you're actually trying to find the most effortless version of the pose possible. That's really the challenge in yoga.
You don't want to feel like you're going to fall over and die and you can't breathe. If you're doing that, you've gone too far.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's a tough one too, because I think some people come to yoga because they really, really hope and want that can be the only thing they can do, because they don't like cardio, or they don't like lifting weights, or they don't like other classes. So that's another like group of people that come to yoga, and then that's why they go, and then that can be tricky too.
And so kind of, I'm going to segue into lightsaber training.
All right.
Yes, please.
Let's do it.
So at this point that this airs, we will have already gone to our lightsaber training.
I hope we're still alive.
I think so. Hopefully we aren't sliced in half like Darth Maul.
Or just a puddle of our robes like Obi-Wan.
Yes, like Obi-Wan. And then like somebody steps on our robes, like, where'd she go? But so lightsaber training. So we're going to, or we will have gone to Columbus Saber Academy. And so my argument in talking about this whole like multiple things that you would do for exercise is, so this is legitimately guys, men, people, I don't know. Actually, I have no idea who's all part of this. I do have a couple friends who teach there.
Yeah.
But people who go through sword training. And that actually requires a lot of fitness in order to be able to wield it gracefully and very, with precision.
Yeah, I'm a little scared.
I am a little scared. Thankfully, these aren't real lightsabers that'll slice us. But so, I guess my point is find something that you enjoy.
Yeah, and I think we've tried to really get that across for folks is like yoga in my mind. So from the perspective of a counselor and the perspective of like a human, yoga is like a complementary practice, but it's a complement to like everything.
Yeah.
I feel like anything that you like to do,
this is a cross
yoga can be a complement for, because there are aspects of it that you're moving your body, which is absolutely, if you come from a place where you were completely sedentary and you start doing yoga, you are very likely to lose weight. Does that mean it's because yoga is cardio and that it's the only workout you should do? No, probably not. But it is a really good complement to other things you could be doing. And I don't think either of this are coming from a place of like prescribing like a certain way of doing things or moving your body, but it's just it's another avenue. So it's not that it's not exercise at all, because it is effort. And your heart rate could go up. You are using muscles. You are using joints. But I still think that it is more of, it's a complement to maybe whatever your mental health practices are, your physical stuff. It gets you in tune with your body in a way that maybe you're going to think more about how you fuel it. And I think that's where some of the gatekeeping can come into, where it's like, no, it's just my cardio. Or if I do yoga, I can only eat raw vegan food because that's what happens at my studio. Or I don't know. I'm trying to think of some other things that happen.
There are some places where you're not allowed to drink water during the practice.
Yeah, I know about those. I've been in a couple of those where they tell you when to drink water. That's a Bikram thing. That is where that originated.
Yeah, I personally, teach his own, but I don't want somebody telling me what I can and can't do for my hydration. Don't mess with my hydration.
Like physically and psychologically, that is not, in my opinion, not a good practice, because we're all, if you're in a yoga classroom, you're probably an adult. You probably from yoga could be learning how to listen to your body, learn how to take better care of yourself. So to have somebody else prescribing these things to you, how to eat, how to drink, how to do these other things, I think can be, and with all of the guru culture things we've talked about, it can be downright dangerous too. Like I teach in a style that is called trauma informed, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more sometimes, but part of the deal with trauma informed yoga is giving people choice, empowering other people, so that whether or not they're coming to you from a place of trauma, they are being empowered to listen to their body and figure out what their body needs. So I don't even always cue, because sometimes in a vinyasa type class, people will say, as you inhale, do this, as you exhale, do this. It's like my phrasing is usually a little different with your inhale, with your inhale, with your exhale, when you are ready, kind of a thing. So that's what, to avoid, the gatekeeping, that's how I prefer yoga taught to me, and that's how I prefer it to be taught to other people.
So gatekeeping goes in a lot of levels. So you're even talking about like the gatekeeping against one's own, body.
Oh, absolutely. I've been very guilty of this before too, and even within the context of being a yoga teacher, it's like, if I'm going to be a yoga teacher, I have to look this way, or I have to do these things. And we've talked about that a lot too. I have to wear my mala beads 24/7, and I have to, I
can't do anything with mala beads on. I'll be very honest. Like, I've tried to have them on my wrists, but then
they're floppy.
I can't write, I can't type. They're just like,
or if you do down dog, then they're
yes, and then they're pressing against my neck when I'm on the ground. No, they're just like, I've tried all of the ways to be yoga.
I have
yogi and all that, and I can't do it. And at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm comfortable just like, I've got my pants on, I'm pretty sure I'm lucky if my pants stay up because there are some things where my pants sort of stick on the ground. You know, I mean, I wear what I'm comfortable. I do what I'm comfortable with. And I think that's a privilege of age and experience.
I think it is too, because I've only recently come to that, and it took me a really, really long time because...
There are plenty of classes I feel uncomfortable going into, and I sit with that discomfort. We talked about that in the last episode. And I recognize this is me. That's on me.
Yeah.
You know, the studio, the place, I mean, even if we're going to talk about, like, you know, going to some, event or something with your nerd friends, like, somebody can make space available. Mm-hmm. But it is not up to them to create the experience for you.
Right.
You have an input into how you receive and interact with the experience. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you know, you do have to, like, if you're uncomfortable, you got to think about, why am I uncomfortable?
Right.
Is there something you can do about it?
Right. What attachments do I have right now to a specific outcome that are making me uncomfortable? What do I think should be happening that I can let go of?
But then, you know, in the vein of, like, the gatekeeping concept, like, also, and this isn't victim blaming, but you are part of whether or not you're going to allow somebody to keep your gate closed.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't have to fall into that. If somebody's trying to gatekeep you, you don't have to deal with that. You don't have to put up with that.
Right.
You don't got time for that.
So you're not Gozer, or you are Gozer? Who has the key? Gozer has the key? No.
Gozer is the keymaster.
Yeah.
Zool is no longer Dana. Only Zool.
Right, okay.
And she needs the keymaster.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really complicated.
It is really complicated. I think I need to rewatch Ghostbusters. I feel like I need some popcorn and to watch Ghostbusters.
That sounds really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you enjoyed this, please click like or subscribe. And thank you to our patrons. Thank you so much. If you would like to become a patron and help support this, help us go forth and go to, more. We would actually like to go to some conventions to, have a booth or to actually, like, interview people. Maybe even, like, teach some yoga at some sort of convention. That'd be awesome. Yeah. So if you can help us with that, that'd be great. Becoming a patron, go to patreon.com/yogarebels and sign up there. And then all that's left
is
keep the rebellion alive.